Good evening. We bring you the latest in the world of sports. I'm Paulo Del Rosario.
We give you the conversations you want to hear from your favorite icons and athletes. I'm Zihir Basho. In tonight's game plan, we'll catch up with the UAAP Season 85 Women's Fencing Gold Medalist, Juliana Gomez.
We'll also look into the crucial weekend matches in the 2023 PVL All-Filipino Conference. And we'll get a preview of the exciting showdowns happening in the UAAP Season 85 Women's Volleyball Tournament. Pull up, sports fans. Let's get in the game. Well, there's no better reward for hard work and dedication in the UAAP than a gold medal finish. Now, UAAP Season 85 Individual Women's AP Champion Juliana Gomez joins us tonight to talk about her journey in fencing. Welcome to the game, champ. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. Thanks for having me.
No, it's great. We're excited to have you here. You know what? We saw it all over on social media. Your post saying that this was 2 years in the making. A lot of people who probably don't know you as well might not understand what that meant. First of all, what did you mean by that? And how did that lead to your spot on top of the podium?
2 years in the making. It's just when I started fencing, it was 2 years ago, I shifted from volleyball and I had set my sights on big goals, including the UAAP and winning a championship for my school, the University of the Philippines.
So you left her sport.
Yes.
And you pursued your own, another one.
I did, yes.
And you did great there. That's amazing.
Thank you.
I mean, earlier, before we went live, I was asking her, hey, weren't you just playing volleyball? So maybe let's take a few steps
Yes.
back and tell our viewers, when did you start fencing? Because I've known that you've been playing volleyball since you were in high school. So,
Yes.
and you started fencing, what, 2 years ago?
2 years ago,
So could you...
middle of the pandemic.
Yes,
the
exactly.
start of the pandemic,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
So during the pandemic, I just decided that, okay, I can't play volleyball anymore because it was considered a contact sport at that time.
Right.
So then I just started fencing with the modern pentathlon team in Ormoc City, Leyte. And I just felt like I had a future in the sport. And so I just kept going and I ranked nationally so that I could join the UP fencing team. And the rest is history.
Well, it
I mean,
does.
it's in the genes,
Yeah, I was going to
diba?
say, it runs in the blood, right? And, okay, let's not beat around the bush with regards to that because it does run the family. Dad, obviously a gold medalist when it comes to fencing internationally. Was there a bit of pressure? Was there a bit of a challenge, an inspiration? How did you look at it? Because I know that sometimes fathers can be big shadows on an athlete, especially if you play the same sport.
In my case, it was zero pressure and just 100% inspiration. Yeah.
I like that. So how does it feel like for him na he'll be known as the father of a UAAP champion this time?
Well, that makes me happy because, I mean, I was known as the daughter of a fencing champion.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that I'm making him proud in the sport that he loves the most.
Yeah, you know, it's incredible, and I obviously have a soft spot for stuff like that. But when you look at the fact that you've only started fencing for 2 years against other athletes who have been doing it a bit longer, I'm sure that in the last 2 years, in terms of catching up, you probably had a lot of pressure on yourself. How did you go through that challenge in particular, and of course trying to, you know, match up against all of these other athletes?
I did everything I could so that by the time I started competing, I wouldn't be going in as someone who was trying to get experience. I wanted to go in as a contender. So start of my fencing journey, I made it a point to get the right strength and conditioning, train twice a day, fence with stronger fencers, work with a sports psych. I just tried to, you know, have all bases covered just so by the time the pandemic ended, I'd be a much stronger athlete and far from a beginner.
I mean, I think the stars were really aligned for you because earlier when we were talking, I found out that, you know, during the pandemic, you were training with the national team already. So, you know, at the beginning, parang birth of fire kagad, you know, walang pasimpleng lakad-lakad or testing the waters for you. It was just, you know,
sprinted before you walked.
Exactly. So how was that like, you know, thinking about joining the fencing world and then being able to train and compete with the national team?
For me, I didn't see it as a challenge. Although it was challenging, I saw it as an opportunity that, you know, most people aren't really given. I'm just so grateful that I was able to experience that because that led me to this moment.
There are some opportunities that don't come to a lot of people, but then not taking it is probably a bigger sin than not actually having it. You look at the fact that the UP in general are not necessarily considered as a fencing powerhouse. In fact, that distinction goes to University of the East.
Correct.
But here you are winning the only individual medal, gold medal rather, for UP here. First of all, how proud does that make you personally, and just how much should we look forward to in terms of the UP fencing program in the future?
It just makes me feel like my work has worked. But at the same time, I hope that fencing gains more recognition, that other people will be more open to, you know, trying the sport and not being intimidated by it. And I'm also hoping that we in the UP fencing team get more support from the school.
Okay.
All right, so we've been talking about how this is your first year playing for the school and the sport.
Third year playing the sport, mind
third
you.
year playing the sport, yes, exactly. But like, okay, gold medal in the UAAP, you've been exposed to a couple or a lot of international tournaments since then. And what's next for you? And you're a senior right now. Is
Yes.
there going to be a fifth year for Miss Gomez in the fencing UAAP division?
Of course, I want to defend the title, that's for sure. But I am aiming to be able to join the national team
Yeah.
for, you know, next year's roster to hopefully compete in the SEA Games and the Asian Games.
And of course, there's going to be a long road. And again, we already see you nationally ranked. In fact, you had the Philippine colors already. And you take a look at what's next for you in terms of that pathway. What do you feel that needs to be done by you to secure those spots?
I think at this point, I just have to continue competing, getting used to the feel of competition, and just continue training and going back to the basics every once in a while.
All right, so you know what? You're an inspiration in the sense that it's never too late to start, apparently.
Definitely
Exactly.
not.
So, I mean, like for those who are thinking about it, considering it, discovering fencing late, whether it be
Yes.
through you, whether it be through K-drama, what do you have to say to them?
Keep going, continue, just get into it. I did when I was 19. I officially started when I was 20. You can either go in as someone who wants to compete, you can go into fencing as a hobbyist. It doesn't matter. It's a sport that you'll fall in love with.
All right, Z, I think that's a sign
I know.
that
Sport
we...
na tayo?
No, we will help younger fencers.
Okay,
Oo.
yes, there
Okay,
you go.
Pwede rin, pwede rin. Juliana, really appreciate you being here.
Juliana, thank
Congratulations
you.
again.
Thank you
And
so
congrats.
much.
All right. And after the break, we'll find out what's at stake in the matches tomorrow in the PVL All-Filipino
Ano
Conference.
kaya yan, Z?
Stay tuned. You're watching The Game. Welcome back to the game. The PVL is down to its last 2 weeks of the elimination round, which means every game matters. And joining us to break down scenarios and highlight key matches is, of course, PVL analyst Ayel Estranero. Yel, good evening and welcome to the game.
You know, I'm gonna ask you questions too, right? I mean, like, because let's be fair here. Yel, let's talk about her.
My role today.
Okay, I understand. Pero, okay, there's a lot of great scenarios that's gonna be happening in the PVL very soon, especially this Saturday. Kasi there are two teams in particular. If they win in 3 sets, Yel, they will end up number 3 and number 4. And those teams, Petro, Gazz, and Chery. Again, it's going to be really interesting scenario-wise for them.
Oh, it's going to be very impactful in terms of standing. Like what you said earlier, we just have 2 weeks. We're nearing the end of the eliminations. And if you want to be able to be part of the semifinals, you really have to make sure that you win, not just games right at this point, sets as well. You have to take good care of the sets and the matches for you to be able to have a better standing for the semifinals.
Are you thinking about that? See, sorry, I mean, like, imagine your team is involved here, all right? I mean, like, winning in certain sets, not enough to just win right now.
Exactly.
You put yourself in certain situations by not taking care of business early now. Is that something being emphasized in general?
Right now, I mean, it's always the direction naman from the coaches na, you know, let's just take one game at a time. And we've got a couple of wins na straight sets na I think, you know, doable. But of course, you can't just always be complacent. But that's the goal. The semis is the next goal. But, you know, we still have a few assignments in the elimination round.
It feels like F2 in particular, if Petro, Gazz, and Chery do win, it feels like they're still being haunted by them considering their losses against them. But then you take a look at Signal and Chocomucho, still in the running. No one still safe. I think it's
They're
safe to say
still
that.
in the running, but definitely it will depend on the teams up there because it looks clean up there.
Yeah.
And they have a couple of losing streaks already. But for them, in their case, they have to win all their games for them to be able to keep their stint alive for the semifinals. But for the teams up there, they just really have to win more sets so that in terms of points, they get more.
Z, do you want to ask Yel anything about your team? What she thinks about your team?
I don't know. Yel, I think you've already covered a couple of Petro Gazz games. What do you think about that team? That team in the I don't know. Let me pick your brain a little bit. Like, ano yung kailangan nilang gawin mas better this time? Or ano yung challenges na... No, I'm kidding. But like...
Yeah, I think for Petro Gazz, really, the team has been solid so far, but it's more of like we've seen their game against PLDT. PLDT was really able to have a lot of in-game adjustments. So I think for the Petro Gazz Angels, it's also the same, but in terms of defense and offense, you've been great. It has been excellent. Cheng as a setter, and now with MJ Phillips back as a starter, she's been a threat in the middle right now. So activating her will really be a big help in terms of score production.
Sinagot mo
My
talaga eh.
teammates are so great.
Yeah.
Sinagot mo talaga eh. But then, alright, so apart from Petro Gazz, obviously you have to talk about Chery Tiggo in general because I think what we discovered in the past conference is still true today. Napaka-importante ni Maylene Paan.
Yeah, definitely. And they've been sort of in a losing streak right now.
Yeah.
And the games they lost, she hasn't really produced a lot of points. That's how much big of a role she's playing for the team. So you really have to activate her early on. She really has to show up during the game because majority of the points comes from her. So it's very important that she's able to be in a comfortable spot to like play offense against a team. But aside from her also, Zaka Randang has been solid in the middle. But she really needs to be activated at the same time because when she's activated, it's hard to read her, not just in the floor defense, but as well timing in the net defense. So both of them really has to be show up good in their game against Akari Chargers tomorrow.
Z, I actually want to ask you about Chery in general as well because again, Maylene is, as you mentioned, probably the most important offensively, especially for Chery. But a bit of inconsistency, is there any insight or any reason why you think that's so? Is it because you're now looking towards her more, trying to shut her down because we know that she can provide import-like numbers, reinforcement-like numbers in the conference in and out?
I mean, at this level, every team would prepare differently and specifically for their next assignment. So, for example, kunwari, tomorrow we'll play Chery Tiggo. Of course, we're gonna be looking at how to stop their number one scorer, and that's gonna be Mylene Pan. And so far, their story is, okay, after Mylene, who's next that, the ball is gonna be set to? And so far, it's been Zakarandang, because they've not only provided the points that they needed, but also the emotions, the heart, the passion inside the court. Oh my gosh, like, I love seeing, of course, my teammate Ren Palma. But like, next to her, Zakarandang is next on my list na sobrang fiery, sobrang fierce maglaro inside the court.
Yeah, you mentioned the being fierce, the emotional. That I'm sure you see it also, not only when you were on the court, but then seeing that as an analyst also. You take a look at si Zakarandang. Just how important is she in the whole grand scheme of things here for this Chery team?
It's very important. She's very important because we talked about her contribution in terms of points, and now Ate Z pointed out how important her energy is, and it's everything, especially in the crucial games right now. It's not just a matter of skills, it's about good energy, the eagerness to win, and staying focused. No, there are some intangibles that play in action, especially in crucial games.
How important is yung consistency all the way going to the semifinals, especially for the Chery Tiggo team? Because the two players we mentioned, Mylene and Za, some people might say that hindi naman sila consistent at least this conference.
Well, they need to be consistent at this point and be very efficient, especially that a lot of pressure is put on them in terms of scoring. But at the same time, if they don't want to have that sort of pressure on their shoulder, some other players really need to step up in terms of score production, because defense-wise is good, but you earn points to really scoring through attack. So they really need to step up in their game tomorrow.
Well, this was torture for Z Hervasio because now she's being an analyst and a host at the same time. And that will continue because the women's volleyball conversation will continue after the break. We shift to the UAAP Season 85 women's volleyball action. Stay tuned. You're watching The Game. From the pros, we shift over to collegiate volleyball action happening this weekend in the UAAP. Now, we still have with us volleyball analyst Ayala Estraniero, and of course, Z Hervasio will answer questions about her FEU squad later on. Of course, yeah, we'll share. All right, so I think one of the teams that have made a lot of noise, especially on social media based on the performances, we have to talk about Adamson, because Adamson have always been that team, right? They've always been that team that was known for always being solid. But this time around, it feels like they're pushing a different level. What do you think about them?
Oh, in terms of Adamson playing against NU the other day, I feel like they are a very organized team.
Yeah.
Yes.
They know who will receive the ball. Luis Romero knows who to set. The attackers know what zones to target. So they made it look like it's so easy for them to play against NU. Their flow was really going well. But more than the flow and the way they organize themselves, it was really their intensity and their eagerness as well to win. Like you would see their eyes really like on fire during that game. And more than that, I think they trusted their system. And by that, it gave them actually the confidence to play against the defending champions who swept the season
Season last
84.
year.
Yeah, so it wasn't easy to play against them early on the UAAP because you won't really have a lot of data in terms of tendencies, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
But they came in very prepared to play against NU.
And yeah, I mean, like I'm sure you've seen that also, Z. I'm sorry, I have to make you an analyst again. But then you take a look at a team like Adamson, who let's be completely frank, not a lot of people expected them to even push NU to 5 sets. You take a look at that. What do you think about the competition this time around, based on what we've seen and based on the fact that the team that swept last time was almost in danger of losing in their first game?
Exactly. I mean, first of all, season 85 is so much different than last year kasi ang dami ng oras para prepare para sa season na to. Wala nang bubble training and there's so much time. Everybody's now parang at an even,
and they had off-season tournaments
Exactly.
to prepare.
But going back to Adamson, I think Ayel mentioned it na rin, parang they focused on themselves. And, you know, their system has been really solid. They focused on, you know, what to do, what not to do. And, you know, I guess it was really lucky then it was the first game that it was NU that they haven't really had time to maybe overthink what they have to do for their first assignment. So it was good and everybody's just so excited on what's to come.
Speaking of what's to come, Adamson versus FEU tomorrow. FEU broke their 11-game losing streak. Congratulations, Z, by the way. Yeah, let's talk about FEU without Z in the picture. In fact, we can actually have one camera just zoom in on Z while we're talking about this. Yeah, when we take a look at FEU snapping that 11-game losing streak against UP, first off, how different do they look? And second, how excited should we be for that matchup against Adamson, who are also surprised?
Oh, they're very different this season, definitely. They're one of the teams for me with the biggest improvement, not just individually, but as a team. They more of have a flow right now, but again, to play against Adamson, who's really good in terms of offense, they really have to double time in their defense, not just the floor defense, because they've been doing well on that, but more so in their net defense. It's going to be very important for them, because we know Luis Romero can be a very tricky setter, who's very unpredictable with her set, so net defense, and even floor defense there, it's going to be very important for FEU on their game.
Thoughts?
I mean, she already mentioned Adamson's key to winning, which is Luis Romero. I wanted to mention that earlier also, how Adamson is probably one of the more senior teams in the UAAP this season. And I remember Luis Romero, rookie, team captain, best setter, and then now, parang sobrang hinog na niya to be the leader in this squad.
How about Hinog? Let's talk about UST. Sorry, do you like that segue? I mean, like there are lots of familiar names when you take a look at UST, and they're going to be going up against NU, which could be a really titanic clash. A lot of experience in this UST team. I mean, you take a look at keys to winning, and you take a look at NU. They're probably looking at their performance against Adamson and say, like, hey, we should have taken care of business early. How do you think they're going to approach this next one?
I think UST has a benefit right now from the game against NU and Adamson because Adamson exposed some weaknesses on the side of NU. So now they will have that sort of advantage of seeing those weaknesses and trying to prepare for it, trying to prepare for those tendencies as well. But for UST, I think they really need to play consistently because they're playing against NU, who is very consistent and fast as a team. And we have Cams Lamina, who just sticks to the system of fast, low sets. No, aside from Romero, we have Cams Lamina, who has been very excellent in terms of set distribution, playmaking. So it's going to be a challenge on the defense side of UST as well.
You know, the two other games that are going to be happening is going to be UE against UP, looking for their first win. So we're going to try and see what we can glean from that once a game actually happens, because again, trying to bounce back.
Yeah.
The other matchup is Ateneo Lasal, wherein Z and actually I don't really see Z as an Atenean right now because of her involvement with FEU. But let's take a look at that, Yel. There are a lot of interesting players here. For Lasal, again, they have a super rookie. And obviously, Mariano Alba also setting up the offense. You take a look at that team against an Ateneo team finding its way also. What do you make of this one?
Well, LaSalle started this season more solid, more looking solid than Ateneo, definitely.
Yeah.
Because they're more intact. I mean, LaSalle is more intact than Ateneo. Ateneo lost a lot of key players from last season. So they're sort of struggling entering this season right now. They have to play more organized. And Coach O was trying to really demand their decision-making in setting and attacking as well. So it's going to be important for them in their game against LaSalle, especially that LaSalle is a good blocking team. They're able to maximize their height very well. So it's really going to challenge the offense of Ateneo.
Ateneo Lasal, always spicy. Yel, maraming salamat. We really appreciate you here.
Thank
Z,
you,
we
Yel.
appreciate you also.
Oh, thank you. All right, that's it for tonight. Thank you for joining us. I'm Zihir Bato.
I'm Paulo De Rosario. This has been The Game.